Yo, what is good, NFL fans? Welcome back to Touchdown Kingdom, the hub of all the latest NFL news and content. It feels good to finally be back making NFL videos. I know it's been a while, but don't worry, I'm going to be very consistent on this channel for the rest of the offseason, carrying over into the regular season. So if you guys are not subscribed to Touchdown Kingdom, make sure you do so, and if you like the video, don't forget to thumbs it up. With that being said, let's jump right in. With the NFL draft being over a month ago, and the majority of the free agent class being signed, we have a projected vision of each team's starting roster for the upcoming 2021 NFL season. We're going to compare each team's current roster to their roster heading into last season and evaluate them with the letter grade. We'll be grading them based on their statistics alongside with some of the PFF Pro Football Focus grades and player-to-player comparisons. But to narrow it down, we're going to be talking about the top 10 teams who are the most improved in comparison to last year. So to kick things off, we have the Tennessee Titans coming in at number 10 with a letter grade of a B. The Titans fall to 10 because surprisingly, they made a few huge moves to counteract their crucial losses in free agency of Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis, and Adoree Jackson. They made a huge splash to acquire wide receiver Julio Jones, who was the best receiver over the last decade and instantly provides the Titans with arguably the best receiving duo in the entire league. The Jadeveon Clowney experiment failed badly last year, and the Titans attempted to solve their pass rush problem by signing edge rusher Bud Dupree. Adding Denico Autry from the division rival Colts provided more danger for that Titans front four after recording 7.5 sacks last year. In the 2021 NFL Draft, the Titans selected Caleb Farley, who was one of the top corners, but the issue is health for him and is a huge risk given his 2 back surgeries, but theoretically, if he stays on the field, he will be a huge upgrade over Adoree Jackson and a true number 1 corner in the NFL. Signing Janoris Jenkins and snagging a slot cornerback in Elijah Molden in the 3rd round could easily be a steal, with him earning the best grade for a slot cornerback in PFF's history. The move the Titans made are risky because of the player injuries and inconsistency, but if everything goes right in how GM John Robinson imagines them to, these moves will surely pay off and could lead the Titans to continuing to be playing meaningful games in the playoffs. Coming in at number 9, we have the Kansas City Chiefs with a letter grade of a B. It seems crazy to rank a team that made the Super Bowl last season as being one of the most improved in the NFL, but when you look at it, they made a really quick 180, and the Chiefs made a lot of moves in this offseason. After releasing both of their great starting tackles in Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, questions were raised because of the nightmare that happened in the Super Bowl. But what the Chiefs did was get younger talent on the offensive line. They traded for 25-year-old Orlando Brown Jr. to be the blindside blocker for Patrick Mahomes, and they signed the most coveted offensive line in free agency in Joe Thuney to a 5-year, $80 million deal. He was a consistent great player for the New England Patriots, striving in the trenches and protecting Tom Brady and Cam Newton, never missing a single game. They brought Kyle Long out of retirement and added even more offensive linemen through the draft by getting one of the most premier centers in Creed Humphrey, and potentially scoring highway robbery in drafting former 5-star high school recruit Trey Smith from Tennessee, who only gave up 1 sack last year and 359 pass blocking snaps. With an already great roster and drafting high upside players such as Nick Bolton, the Kansas City Chiefs look to be a better team than last year and potentially close out on the big game once again. Coming in at number 8, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars with a letter grade of a B+. After finishing 1-15 and having the most cap space to spend in the NFL and having the first pick in every single round of the draft, the Jaguars were bound to heavily improve. They did so primarily at the quarterback position by drafting highly touted quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who has been highly regarded coming out after winning a national title for Clemson and his college stat line being 90 touchdowns to 17 interceptions. They took the versatile playmaker Travis Etienne with a specific plan unknown, but they went on and invested more draft picks in potential offensive staple pieces in tackle Walker Little from Stanford in the 2nd round, tight end Luke Farrell from Ohio State, and intriguing project wide receiver Jalen Camp. They added a plethora of free agents from good cornerback Shaquille Griffin to underrated and reliable receiver Marvin Jones Jr., all the way to more depth and special teams players in Jamal Agnew, Philip Dorsett, and Carlos Hyde. The Jaguars already have great talent on their roster in Laviska Shenault Jr., James Robinson, Miles Jack, DJ Chark, Josh Allen, and CJ Henderson. This Jaguars team is bound to win more games than last year, but the question mark is their new head coach, Urban Meyer. But other than that, the Jaguars have earned a B+ grade for upgrading this roster from a previous 1-win football team. Now coming in at number 7, we have the Los Angeles Chargers with a B+ grade. The Chargers were not a bad team last year because they should have gotten a few more wins in their blown games, but they still found a way to have one of the best drafts and a very solid free agency. Although Justin Herbert played phenomenally last year, his protection was very shaky, and the Chargers addressed it in a heartbeat by signing elite center Corey Lindsey from Green Bay on a 5-year deal and pairing him up with one of the top-ranked tackles in Rashawn Slater in the draft, one of the only players that held Chase Young in check in college. Matt Fielder from Pittsburgh was also added to that room to solidify the protection of their franchise quarterback and open up the offense even more. Offensive weapons in a big-bodied receiver like Josh Palmer, a physical tight end in Trey McKitty were drafted, alongside bringing in reliable veteran tight end Jared Cook. The Chargers also snagged Asante Samuel Jr., who has great film and was talked about as the potential sleeper pick to be a successful cornerback in the NFL, just like his father. They took Chris Rumph out of Duke and could be on the other side of Joey Bosa if Melvin Ingram is not re-signed. With all the talent brought in the building, key pieces in Casey Hayward and Hunter Henry both left, and Rashawn Jenkins who left for Jacksonville, their secondary still remains a question mark even with promising head coach Brandon Staley, and their grade could have been raised more if they spent more money in free agency. But for the longevity, the Chargers are doing the right thing. Coming in at number 6, we have the New York Jets with a letter grade of a B+. In a similar sense to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets roster after free agency in the draft is definitely better than the one that finished 2-14. The Jets scored the best pass rusher in the free agent class in Carl Lawson, who although finished with only 5.5 sacks, he had 44 pressures and 32 quarterback hits. It could be the final piece of the puzzle to unlock a dominant defensive line in a similar way that Nick Bosa did for the 49ers. They improved upon the terrible wide receiver room too by signing former 5th overall pick Corey Davis, who had a breakout year in 2020, finishing with an 86.9 PFF grade, and they also signed reliable receiver Keelan Cole. Signing linebacker Jared Davis is a low-risk move that can pay off tremendously since he was a former first-round pick and a common consensus that he was misused in Detroit. LaMarcus Joyner will no longer have to play slot corner as he'll be moving back to safety where he strived the most with the Rams. The Jets drafted Zach Wilson, who is a gifted thrower of the football and has tremendous NFL potential, and then they went on and drafted versatile offensive lineman Elijah Vera-Tucker to protect him. The Jets didn't stop there by drafting receiver Elijah Moore and running back Michael Carter, who were both highly productive in college. The Jets look to turn a new leaf from the disastrous previous era with the new offensive additions. The 6 drafted project defensive players in the later rounds with the depth signings are intriguing for promising first-year head coach Robert Saleh to work with. And although the Jets won't be winning the AFC East, they are clearly an improved football team with a culture as well. The Dolphins are the first to land a grade in the A range and are at the number 5 spot for some of their more under-the-radar free agency acquisitions, but especially for their slam dunk of a draft. Signing Justin Coleman to be the slot cornerback is a steal for the contract and allows for Noah Igbinoghene to develop longer, solidifying that Miami secondary. Acquiring Benardrick McKinney helps their linebacker group, especially after cutting Kyle Van Noy. Adam Butler and Matt Skura are good depth signings, but the big name they got in free agency is Will Fuller on a 1-year deal, who finally gives Miami a true deep threat receiver for their quarterback Tua. Miami doubled down by drafting Jalen Waddle, who contrary to popular belief is more than just a deep threat receiver, but a guy who can run most of the routes asked of him, is explosive off the line, and is tough as nails by finding a way to play in the College Football National Championship. Drafting Jalen Phillips in the first round is a great value pick because he was the best edge in the class, and the talk of him coming out of college was the injury concerns. But if he does in fact stay healthy, he will terrorize quarterbacks in not only the AFC East but all opponents. With Miami's secondary, they need to get after the quarterback, and Brian Flores will have a great unit to combat any offense. The drafting of safety Javon Holland helps that vision, and tackles Liam Eichenberg and Larnell Coleman add more protection for their quarterback. Quarterback is the one question of the Dolphins, whether it's Tua is the man for the job or if it's Jacoby Brissett will be the guy, and when quarterback is the issue, it's hard not to put weight on that when evaluating a team. Coming in at number 4, we have the Washington Football Team with a letter grade of an A-. The Washington Football Team gets an A- for the fact that they did a lot right in free agency and the draft. However, quarterback is the catalyst position for a championship run, and although Ryan Fitzpatrick is a good stopgap quarterback, he isn't going to lead them to a deep playoff run. Anyways, in free agency, they improved their offense by signing receiver Curtis Samuel, who was asked to do a lot in Carolina last year, taking jet sweeps and even sometimes being in the backfield. He will fit nicely in the slot, while Terry McLaurin is on the outside and can open up the playbook for offensive coordinator Scott Turner. The goal is for him to become the captain of the defense like Luke Kuechly and Brian Urlacher were for Ron Rivera. They drafted one of the most athletic players in the draft in Samuel Cosmi, who will sit behind newly acquired Charles Leno and work on his technique, but can be a great player who can fill in if a man goes down. The primary goal of the draft was to focus and hone in on the defense. And they did by drafting young cornerback Benjamin St-Juste, who has an 80-inch wingspan and is 6'3", who could turn into a good corner under tutelage in a few years. Dyami Brown out of North Carolina was drafted and provides a deep threat for the offense and rounds out their wide receiver room nicely. In round 7, they drafted 2 edge prospects who are high risk, high reward. The football team had a big loss in Ronald Darby, but besides that, they have done a great job at improving the team not only for this upcoming year, but for the entire tenure for Ron Rivera. They will be competing for first place in the NFC East, but quarterback is too big of a wonder to rank them any higher. Number 3, we have the New England Patriots with a letter grade of an A. Bill Belichick instilled a winning culture in New England, and with a 7-9 record last season, it was clearly an unacceptable result. The answer? Spend money. A lot of money. And draft well. In 2020, Cam Newton had no weapons except for Jacoby Myers, so the Patriots brought in Nelson Aguilar, who came off a breakout season for the Raiders, and Kendrick Bourne, the 49ers' second-round pick, who had a solid 2020 season. The Patriots decided to bring in 2 of the most premier tight ends in the free agency class in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith for sizable contracts. Although many think this offense could be planned like it was for Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, the Patriots also traded for Trent Brown to help the pass protection and running game. On defense, they signed Kyle Van Noy while bringing in edge rusher Matt Judon, who will be on the other side of Van Noy. The Patriots are also getting Dante Hightower back as he opted out of the 2020 season and is a key player for Bill Belichick's defense. And for the draft, the Patriots decided to get a quarterback in Mac Jones from Alabama, who plays the position with a similar mindset to former Patriot and Tom Brady. He operated an offense from former NFL offensive coordinator Steve Starkinson at a high level and won a national championship. He might not start day one, but it's because Cam Newton is a competent quarterback and not because Mac is bad or has glaring issues. Arguably, he is the safest plug-and-play quarterback in the class. The Patriots drafted Christian Barmore, who was one of the more better defensive line prospects to replace Adam Butler. They snagged Ronnie Perkins in the 3rd round, who has a stellar PFF grade at 90.4 and provides more edge presence. The rest of their draft picks are mainly developmental, but Bill Belichick finds a way to maximize the talent of anybody on the team. The Patriots team is heavily improved, especially in the offensive end, which was their biggest struggle last year. And it wouldn't be surprising at all to see the Patriots challenging the Bills and the Dolphins for the division title. The New York Giants are coming in at number 2 with a letter grade of an A. The New York Giants are the NFC version of the Dolphins, where instead they did even more to better the team through free agency. The priority was to improve the offense in signing wide receiver Kenny Golladay to a 4-year, $72 million deal to win the contested catches, as that was his specialty in Detroit, whether it would be a lot of traffic or jump ball. The Giants weren't satisfied and drafted wide receiver Kadarius Toney with a top 20 pick, who not only provides crisp routes but is the definition of a playmaker with the ball in his hands. They added to the tight end room by signing Kyle Rudolph, who can provide more reliability than Evan Ingram and will be a prime red zone target for Daniel Jones. The Giants had a great draft by drafting edge Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, who was being possibly projected as a first-round pick, and also getting slot cornerback Aaron Robinson, who is a big-bodied corner that can play press coverage where he could potentially play on the outside if Adoree Jackson gets injured. The offensive line is the main question with this team, and obviously quarterback, although Daniel Jones gets too much flack sometimes, but now there are no more excuses since he has inadequate weapons around him and a spectacular defense. Although the Giants did not make as many signings as other teams, they have had an impactful draft and signings that have elevated them from a wildcard team to potential winning the NFC East. And coming in at number 1, we have the Cleveland Browns with an A+ grade. The Cleveland Browns take the cake for being the most improved team, and they might have a top 2 roster in the NFL now alongside the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last season, the Browns finally figured out their offensive line woes, as their main weakness lied in the secondary, which they addressed in this offseason. The Browns signed safety John Johnson III and is a huge improvement over Andrew Sendio, where Johnson has quietly been one of their better safeties in the NFL the past 2 years, having an 85.6 PFF grade last season in comparison to the Sendio's 42.6. They signed Troy Hill to be their slot corner, and he was a player who performed well in Brandon Staley's defense and has been reliable his whole career. It doesn't stop there, because the Cleveland Browns knew if they wanted to improve the roster more to where they could legitimately have a chance of winning the Super Bowl, they needed to get a few more guys. The first of those guys is cornerback Greg Newsome from Northwestern, and started to get more buzz a few weeks before the draft regarding being a first-round pick. he will most likely be starting outside opposite of Denzel Ward. The second round pick the Browns used in the draft was to select Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who had some of the best film in the entire draft class but fell on draft day due to medical scare regarding his heart. But doctors eventually cleared him and allowed for Cleveland to take him in the middle of the second round. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah provides coverage, as his best trait being able to man up against tight ends and tackle running backs before they hit the open hole. He's a perfect pairing next to BJ Goodson and in a sense completes their defense. In the third round, they got the fastest receiver in the draft in Anthony Schwartz, who's a deep threat and can allow for Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry to do more of their work in the intermediate to short passes on the field. The rest of their draft picks are mainly depth pieces, but there will always be a diamond in the rough in some of these drafts. The Browns finished with 11 wins last year in a competitive division, and with the Steelers getting weaker and the Ravens being a more potential question mark, the Browns have a great shot of winning the division and advancing in the playoffs past the wild card. I definitely think the Cleveland Browns were the most improved team in this offseason, and I have high expectations for them in the NFL this season. That does it for our top 10 most improved teams in the NFL. Keep in mind these are all projections, and football is the biggest team sport out there, so for all we know, some of these teams could definitely let us down. But let us know down below in the comments section if you agree with this list, or feel free to give your ordered list and why. Thank you guys so much for all the support here in Touchdown Kingdom. I appreciate it, and stay tuned for more consistent NFL content. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for more. Peace out, guys. Have a great day.